How's it going, everybody? It's Catfish on Ice. It's episode 264. Let me tell you how my day went for this episode.
I think I just found out by scrolling in the chat a few minutes ago.
If this isn't a microcosm for this Preds season and every Preds fan following this team, I got shit on by a bird today. While I was, God is my witness, I was walking through my neighborhood, approaching a crosswalk, beautiful day, clouds out, perfect weather, and just enjoying nature, squirrels frolicking. Yes, frolicking. They were birds chirping. And then one of those birds that were chirping decided to take a big old dump on me. Actually, not a big old dump. I will say a tiny dump. Very kind enough to land on my shirt. Everyone's telling me it's good luck when a bird takes a crap on you. So, okay, we'll take that. But the funny part about all of this is I was literally brainstorming in my head about tonight's episode. I was thinking, how are we going to do this episode tonight? Like, how are we going to approach this? Like, lottery for the Preds, NHL lottery scenarios. There's a lot of debate about draft picks and players trying to prove themselves. All that. I was just running through all these things, and plop right on the shirt. Not this shirt. I changed shirts, everybody.
There we go.
But yeah. Everyone's telling me it's good luck, but it was just perfect. It was like perfect irony, if you will, about how this Preds season is gone.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're thinking of the Preds right then and there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny part about it. It's not even that the bird pooped on me. It's what I was thinking in my head when it happened. Maybe the bird was agreeing with me that this season has been hot garbage. I think that's what the bird. I think that's what that bird was trying to tell me is, yeah, your team has been hot garbage this year, but it's okay. We got a fun episode lined up for everyone. Happy to be back. The episodes have been a little bit more spread out lately. I apologize about that, but life gets in the way. But me and Max both always want to bring you the very best episode we can bring you. And so sometimes the episodes are going to be a little bit more spread out so we can bring you a really good quality episode. And that's really what we have planned for you tonight. And some things we really want to get into is NHL Draft Lottery Scenarios. We want to break it down, the odds. The Preds fans, we haven't been in this position in recent times. If you're a new fan of this team, you don't even know what the hell's going on right now. You're used to the Nashville Predators being a regular season walk-in, if you know what I mean, Max. First of all, Max, how are you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I'm doing good. Just been, busy as life commands normally. Yeah, no, it's kind of a lot of the same that's gone on recently. I guess part of this month has been pretty good because I took a trip to California a few weeks ago, actually go see Preds games in Anaheim and LA.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
And it was a great trip regardless.
And honestly, those were close games. Both of them were heartbreakers for the Preds.
What was crazy about on both games I went to, there were 4 total goals scored. Nobody wanted to score a goal while I was on that trip for some odd reason. Nobody wanted to score.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. But no, it was all seriousness, it was a really, really fun trip. I saw across 2 more NHL arenas.
Hell yeah, man.
I'd actually never been to California at all in the first place, so that was good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Let's say hi to Johnny, our good buddy, Predemption.
Sure.
He says, Showtime. And he said, I'd rather get crapped on by a bird, Chad, than what happened to me about 5 years ago. Out for a morning run, a crow came down and whacked me on my head. All right, fair enough.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's way worse. All right, so yeah, we got Saskatoon Tiger in here. He or she says, hi, guys. Hello. Happy to see you. Long-time viewer. And I love to see you, Saskatoon Tiger. Thank you for joining. Make sure you hop in during our topics tonight. We love to hear all of our opinions from our listeners and viewers. We love to hear your thoughts on our topics. That's what makes our episodes so awesome. And so so we're gonna do these NHL lottery scenarios, how the Preds fit in. It's kind of confusing because the percentage odds are all based on the number one pick. So it's all about reducing tanking is the whole idea behind it, right? Like, even if you are the worst team in the league, which it looks like the San Jose Sharks by the standings will be the worst team in the league, you get the overwhelming best odds, 25.5%. Drops dramatically after that. You got the Blackhawks at 13 point. We'll get into it, but my point is it's all percentage based. So when we're arguing about, the Preds got to lose so they can get the best draft pick, it's all thrown in a blender. And for those conspiracy theorists out there, which I'm not going that far when it comes to that, but for the conspiracy theorists out there, they think it doesn't matter anyway because the NHL will never give the Preds the top pick anyway. Okay. But my point is, we're going to break down those scenarios. We're going to look at the Preds' remaining schedule and just like how bad does it hurt them if they get some wins just to feel good about themselves? Because there's not been a lot about this season to feel good about yourself. No. So we're going to weigh those two things against each other. Does it benefit the franchise more to just win some games and feel good about yourself? Or does it benefit the franchise more to keep losing to increase your odds of a lottery pick by a couple of percentage points? Maybe, that's what we're going to get into. It'll be a heated debate. We're going to update the playoff race. We got a good friend of the show that's been on Catfish on Ice a couple times. Perfect time for Mason, Blues Fan Reacts YouTube channel, to join the show. Actually, I've been trying to get this. He's a good friend of mine. I've been trying to get him on all season, and it's just the timing hasn't worked out. But Preds have played the Blues 3 times in 10 days? Is that the
tomorrow will be third?
Yeah.
And so also, one thing I'll say, and I'm gonna and not to go too far into the weeds here, but at least if the Blues, I believe, if my math is correct, if the Blues beat the Preds in any fashion tomorrow, the Preds will be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. If my math is correct.
So it will be official.
Yes.
It will be official.
Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, I mean, we've known for a while, but still.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it still matters when you see it officially happen in the standing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Good point there, Max. But we're going to get Mason in here because he is a really, really awesome. Like, I love to follow other passionate fans of their teams around the league. And Mason is one of my favorite follows that covers the Blues. It's not a franchise I'm particularly fond of, let's be honest. And when he gets in here, we'll go back and forth on that. But I got to call it what it is. The St. Louis Blues are surging right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're kind of doing what the Preds did last season in a similar way. Yeah. Not an 18-game point streak, but still, man, they are really – they went from being a pretty for sure non-playoff team to now you're seeing NHL analysts out there saying, like, you don't want any part of the Blues in the first round if they make it in.
They're 8-1-1 in their past 10.
Yeah, and they've beat some good teams along the way. And I got to say, against the Preds, they looked really good. I know that's not saying a lot, but they did look good.
Their speed is really good.
Yeah.
Their speed is top.
And even going into the season, I said the Blues were a wild card. Like, I didn't know what to make of them. Like, they're just a mystery, and they still are.
Honestly,
and they're proving that right now.
Part of what's gone so well for them, honestly, and I saw a stat this morning, there are 2 offer sheets over the offseason for Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway have paid massive dividends for them. Like, I think Holloway in particular is, like, going crazy right now, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I know at least somewhat because he's on both my fantasy hockey teams that I do.
Oh, and in the Catfish on Ice Fantasy Hockey League, it's neck and neck.
Yeah.
It's a very competitive league.
I'm surprised. I thought my draft was terrible. Straight
you
up.
got a good team.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. But other things we have to get into on the to-do list for episode 264 of Catfish on Ice is we got to talk about some other Preds things. Obviously, we're looking long-term future, but let's shorten it out to short-term future. Not so much this season, but off-season in 2025-26. How quickly can we turn this around? Are we destined for a ugly, deep rebuild similar to what the Sharks are going through, the Blackhawks have gone through, teams like that, Sabres, or are there some players on this current team that can help us avoid that? And we can kind of reload and at least be interesting next year. I'm talking about next year. I'm not trying to think long term. So I'm not even really thinking about the draft when I pose this question. So we're going to get into that. And also revisionist history here. The Preds have lost a lot of players over the last 2 years. The roster turnover is insane. I put something out last night after the win over the Hurricanes, which we should probably talk about that a little bit too. But I put something out about the Hurricanes last night, the win. And, Luke Evangelista, as you see on the bottom of the screen there for our YouTube viewers and Facebook viewers, Preds beat the Hurricanes 3-1, sweep the season series. Who saw that coming?
Right.
I will say last night's game, the Hurricanes probably didn't have a lot to play for, but I will also say, because they're locked into a second place spot most likely, but I will say they didn't play that way. The Hurricanes looked like they wanted to win that game.
The Preds were not. I did not think that. Most people agree. The Preds were not the better team in that game.
No, of course not. UC Saros completely stole that game.
What is it with UC Saros and Carolina?
Last time
the 63 save game and now this.
But I also don't want to overlook the fact that Luke Evangelista had himself a game.
Yes, and I'm very happy about.
And also UC Saros did collect his 200th career win, which is awesome.
Great for him.
And he is only, according to the NHLPA Post, he is the 6th Finnish netminder to reach 200 NHL wins. So a pretty elite class of netminders there for UC Saros and his home country of Finland. So awesome, and I love that. But I wanted to share this too. So Luke Evangelista has a 2-goal game. Looked really good. I mean, both goals were just pinpoint. This is the kind of stuff you're hoping for, especially his first goal of the game where he broke out and deked out the Carolina goalie to score that goal. But this just gives you an idea, and I should really probably put this on the screen, so I will. So let me find the tweet real quick. But also, I'll go ahead and share it for our listeners before I put it on the screen. To give you an idea of just how much roster turnover this team has had in just the last 2 years, it really comes down to that. And I'm not saying for better or worse necessarily, but you be the judge of that. But it really puts it down to, I wanted to see. So Luke Evangelista had a 2-goal game last night. He's been in the fold for 3 seasons now. His official rookie season was last season. I've been pretty critical of him this year, I'll be honest. I don't think he's shown nearly enough toughness. He's gotten bullied around the puck a lot this year.
Yeah.
But last night, the guy was on another level, and I was very impressed by him. So I want to put this on the screen. I put this out after the game. Let me share it. But this gives you perspective of how much roster turnover this team has gone through. And basically, Luke Evangelista is among the top active point leaders of the Preds right now, the Preds franchise. When we talk about active, and that just tells you how much roster turnover this team has had over the last 2 years. And so I'm going to put it on the screen right now so we can all see it. And there you have it. So Roman Yossi obviously is the active leader, 724 points. Philip Forsberg is second at 670 points. Colton Sissons, which is a product of longevity for this franchise, has 221 points. Look at the drop off, over 400 points from second to third. Ryan O'Reilly, who's only in his second season with Nashville, is fourth among active Preds point leaders. And then there's Luke Evangelista. 76, or no, now 78, because when I put that out, they hadn't updated it yet. So Luke Evangelista, 78 career points. The next closest person is Michael McCarron. So that just kind of puts it in perspective. I wanted to put that out there.
That's insane.
It is insane. But it's also like a testament to our later segment we're going to talk about, which is really about the roster turnover and the retool that we're about to go through here, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to get into that. And then also, I think that covers everything. Also, we are going to throw in some Titans talk.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done a Titans time segment in a while. And, you know, NFL season's been over for a little bit. Titan season's been over for a little bit. But the NFL draft, Titans have the number one pick. There's a lot of talk out there. Are the Titans going to trade back? Are they going to go ahead and take their quarterback? What are they going to do? I want to get Max's thoughts on that. Seeing a lot of new stuff out there. A lot of the free agency quarterbacks have been claimed now, so we can put that to rest. So we will round out episode 264 with some Titans time for our crossover Preds Titans fans of the show. So we're about to have Mason join the show, Blues Fan Reacts. But before we do that, we'll get him in here. But let's go ahead and talk about these NHL lottery scenarios, Max. And I want to bring you in to open it up, because how is your overall feeling about just the not even just tanking? I just mean about the fact that how do you feel about this time of year when the Preds clearly have nothing to gain when it comes to the standings?
Mm-hmm.
So when they go out and beat a team like Carolina, sure. I'm a purist. I just want to see them win. I mean, I can't get over it. I get the other side of the coin. I get the fact that losing probably, maybe in the long term, might benefit the franchise. Maybe they get a better odds to land the number one pick in this year's draft. I get all that. But I'm just a sports fan. I want to see this team win. And this team has lost so many bad games this year. Where do you fall on this?
Again, I definitely see both sides of the coin, but ultimately, I agree with you. Like, you know, games that I'm a purist too in that regard. You know, games are ultimately played to be won, and I'll be honest. There's definitely some games where I'm tested. You know, there's some games where I maybe will secretly hope a little bit for it, but ultimately, I know and I honor that it's the job of the guys, the coach, everyone to go out there and win a game. And at the very least, when you see good hockey played, I'm not going to be mad. And especially when someone like Luke Evangelista is playing really well, you know, you need to see a guy like him perform well. So that doesn't make me mad at all. And look, you know, again, like I get both sides. And there are some people I know who roll their eyes about when you hear like, oh, guys playing for pride and all that. That's the nature of it, guys. These players play for pride. They play for a reason. You know, no one ever wants to go out there and lose a game. You know, that's just like you go into locker rooms, like everyone who ever talks, they're never worried about, you know, their draft pick. They want to win. And, you know, when you think about, you know, history and how sports work, you know, there's some teams every now and then who come out and say, yeah, we're going to try and tank. But a lot of times the teams that, you know, get those high picks just happen. They're not necessarily tanking. They're just that bad. I think that for a team in the NFL, the Titans are a perfect example. They were not actively tanking. They were just that bad of a football team. And, you know, it's, again, you know, I think it all comes down to, you know, for me is, look, I totally get both sides of the story. And you're not going to see me like mad if the Preds lose a game. But by the same token, you'll like never see me like actively root for a loss. That's just not, what I do. And, just knowing, how these teams work, that's just my stance at the end of the day. It may not, and people might, think, that maybe it's not the best long term, but again, I just know that at the end of the day, these players and coach, everyone, they want to go out there and win a game. I think, at the end of the day, I still want them to play hard. I don't want to see them just going out there and just purposefully just not playing the game. And that's at the end of the day, that's disgrace. I still would like to see, if I had to have my cake and eat it too, I guess it'd be ideal to see this team play their hearts out every game and just lose. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying here. And, what's kind of funny about this whole thing is, there's been games where the Preds have won and, and things could obviously change. And there's been games that the Preds have won a lot of the times. And, people start to, say, oh, they shouldn't have won this game, blah, blah, blah. But I have never gotten out of the bottom 3 spots. So, like, either way, I see very little chance that this team is not going to finish with a high pick.
So here's how I feel about it. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong this season. I mean, I just want to see this team get something good working for them. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where nothing will fix the fact that I think Andrew Brunette should be fired. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's just my personal belief that I think that should happen. I'm not predicting that necessarily, but it should happen. But aside from that, this team is kind of stuck with what they have right now. I mean, they don't have a ton of free agents to flip. Barry Trotz came out and said he would like to sign a free agent veteran, right shot defenseman. That was reported by Robbie Stanley of 102.5 The Game. You look at the defenseman on the – I mean, I'll pull it up on my phone because I appreciated that post by Robbie Stanley, but I want to just share, according to Puckpedia, who those free agent right defensemen are. Nothing that gets me going, I'll tell you that. But before I find that, we got the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator on the screen right now. By tankathon.com. Fun website. They do all the sports. They do mock drafts. They do these lotteries for both NBA and NHL, which does the lottery system. And let's just do it right now, live on the screen. Let's see. Let's do it. Let's do a simulation lottery and see where the Preds end up. Let's do it right now. Nashville gets the number 1 pick.
Ha. And Chicago gets them down to 4.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Seattle moves up 5
Whoa.
picks. Columbus moves up 10 picks. Nashville drops to number 5.
10?
I guess the point I want to make is now Nashville's at number 3. The point I want to make is I've been doing this probably religiously for the past week or two. And every time Nashville ends up in the top 5 with where they're at right now in the standings. Because the way the NHL lottery system works, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners already know this, but some probably don't. And I even had to brush up on this because it's kind of complicated. Really, the lottery only affects the top 3 picks. After that, it's in order of the standings. So, and if you're outside of the top, I want to say the top 11 or 12, you can only move up 10 spots. So when you look at where Nashville's at in the standings, really they can only move ahead of Philly, Buffalo, and maybe Utah if they or Seattle, not even Utah, Seattle if they really went on a hot streak. So there's 3 teams that the Preds could, at worst case scenario, move ahead of in the standings and upset their lottery odds, is the point I'm trying to make. And so Buffalo is really the closest team to Nashville. They're like neck and neck right now in points.
Yeah.
So, and Buffalo won last night while Nashville also won. So it didn't affect Nashville at all by winning last night and getting some good vibes, feeling good about themselves. So the point is, and even when you do win, really San Jose is the only team, really being the worst team is the only team that really gets the overwhelming odds, as you can see here, 25.5% odds. And I'll hit reset here so that I can just kind of like give everyone a refresher here. So we can just kind of see what it looks like without doing the simulation. And I'll move it over so everyone can see the odds. There it is. So 25.5% for San Jose. And then it drops all the way down to 13.5%, 11.5%. If Nashville were to somehow win a few games and Philly and Buffalo lose a few games, which could totally happen, then Nashville's odds could drop from 11.5% down to 8.5%. So we're talking 3 percentage points. All I'm trying to get at is, what do you weigh more importantly? Winning and feeling good about yourself going into the offseason, or perpetual losing, which this franchise has already dealt with all year, and you get a couple extra percentage points to maybe still pick where you're going to pick anyway, with the lottery balls falling where they may. So, I mean, the lottery's situation basically makes it to where, and I'm a fan of it. I love it. I don't like to see tanking. I don't want to see any team lose on purpose. I don't care how bad you are. I don't care how bad your season's going. You should never, ever lose on purpose. If anything, the teams like Carolina have more reason to not play right now because they have more to play for because they're heading to the playoffs and they're locked into their playoff position. That's what how I feel about last night's game. I'm not taking anything away from that win for the Preds, but that's how I feel about last night's game, Max, is who had more to – I'll ask you first before I give my answer, even though you kind of already know my answer. Who had more to play for last night? Nashville and Carolina. Who had really more to play for? What would you say, Max?
Probably Carolina, since they
you
still
think so?
Probably, I would say so. I mean, they still have a chance to go into the. I mean, I get what you're saying, both sides of it. Here's here's what I will add. If kind of going on a bit of a separate tangent, here's what I will say. Kind of the points you said is, number one, I agree in the fact in your argument that like no matter what, the player should always play hard. That's why they play. So you expect that no matter what. At least I do. And number two, and again, everyone has their opinions up, but if there's one thing I really kind of shake my head at, it's the people that want losses for every single game remaining. You don't want that. That's reflective of much bigger problems. Like, it's physically in a league like the NHL, it's so physically hard to lose like 10 or 20 games in a row. And if that happens, you got some real issues, and that who the hell knows if those get fixed? You know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure,
you don't want to lose every single game remaining.
With 11 games remaining, it seems like a lock that the Preds will at the very least avoid being the worst finish in the standings in their 26-year history. They will at least beat the inaugural team that only had 63 points. Preds have 62 points now in the standings. So, I mean, I've been watching that closely. Like, that was not a foregone conclusion a few weeks ago. It was looking really dicey that the Preds were going to finish right around where the inaugural 1998-99 team finished, which was 63 points, which that team had every excuse in the book to finish there because they were an expansion team back when the expansion rules were not anything like they are today. So, no excuses for this year's Preds team to be this bad. I'm not saying that at all, but it does at least look like they're going to beat that team.
God.
They got 11 games left. But when you look at the overall league standings and how the Preds could win their way out of getting a better draft pick, let's paint it that way. Right now, as we record this podcast, the Predators are 30th out of 32 teams in the league. 30th out of 32. I mean, it's just crazy to even say that right now.
Insane.
Based on how hyped up me and you both were.
Everyone.
Free agency.
Who wasn't hyped? Literally everybody.
But let's look at this for a second. Let's just think about this for a second. Buffalo is next up at 64 points. Philly is at 65 points. Seattle's at 66 points. Anaheim's at 68. And Pittsburgh and Boston are at 69. So this is where I can kind of understand where the lose at all costs segment of the fan base feels here. Is there's 11 games left. And we are the reverse course of the playoff race. We are the lottery race. This is what the Preds are in right now. We're in the lottery race right now. So sad to say that, but it's true.
Yep.
We're in the lottery race right now. And it's who can suck worse at this point. And you're talking about 7 points difference between the 24th ranked team, which is Boston, and the 30th ranked team, which is Nashville. So I do get where that segment of fans are coming from when they say, I don't want to see the Preds reel off a random 5-game, 6-game winning streak. I get where they're coming from.
That makes more sense, yes.
I just don't think that they have the personnel on their roster right now to do it anyway.
No way.
I mean,
I'm not saying necessarily no way, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I think they're going to just lose naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get Mason in. I think he's actually ready to join us. Let's get him in here.
All right, hold on. I'm joining. So
I think he's ready. Let's make sure he's ready.
I think I heard his voice.
hello.
What's up, Mason? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. It was like last minute. I contacted you this afternoon, but I mean, that's what happens when the St. Louis Blues just try to reenact 2019, right?
Dude, you're telling me, buddy, they caught me by surprise about as much as anything else. I'm in a playground area at work right now. I had to step aside because what's not to love? What's not to talk about? And hey, any excuse to get on the show, I'll always take. So I appreciate you having me on. Hope you're doing well, buddy. How you doing, Max? Good to hear from you.
How are you? I think it's the first time we've been on the show together.
Yeah. I think we've talked a few times in backstage. I don't think we've ever been on the show together. That's cool, though.
There you go.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well,
awesome to finally get to talk to you. I know we've had a little bit of Twitter banter. That's been awesome.
There we go.
Let me just say that BFR is the best Blues follow you can have out there. And I love following his rants on his team. You've been very, very critical of this team before they really started going on their playoff surge. And this is going to kind of get us into our next segment of episode 264 here is the playoff race right now. And let's just open it up right now and talk about the wild card race that's going on in the West. And the Blues are shaking things up right now. The job is not done, obviously, but Mason, I know that you have been like critical of this team based on my following of you about like, what are we? Are we a bubble team? Like, let's not waste it. Like, how are you feeling about this team if they sneak in?
You know, it's really difficult to gauge the Blues this year because for the most part, other than, the initial hype at the beginning of the season with the Holloway and Broberg offer sheets, there really hasn't been a whole lot of indication, especially from the front office in regards to moves that are giving us, as fans, any indication that we were wanting to compete, right? You had the Cam Fowler trade in the middle of the season. which I think is probably one of the most underrated defensive acquisitions the Blues have had in the last decade.
Wow.
This is a guy who's been struggling and struggling in Anaheim, just been hung out to dry for 25, 30 minutes a night. Finally coming to a team with structure. Yeah, there's no shit. He's going to start scoring goals. He's going to start getting in on forechecks. He's going to start, contributing offensively and being an excellent addition to the blue line when all of a sudden, hey, I'm in the latter half of my career. I'm on a team that has some actual defensive structure. Maybe I don't have much on my shoulders anymore. I'm not just hung out to dry in front of an actual goalie. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the fact that he's finally got, and I think that's been so huge for his confidence. I mean, the guy has 5 goals with the Blues already. It's been unbelievable. I don't think he had a goal in Anaheim this year. So this is a guy who's actually contributing not only on the score sheet, but definitely on the ice. His line mates just love him. He had an excellent dipsy doodle move. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights from the last game, but holy smokes, he had a nice dipsy doodle and going right to the front of the net, and he almost had the goal. It went off of Soderblom's glove, and Holloway was able to tip it in front. But oh
Mason,
man.
Mason, I can tell you, I did watch, unfortunately, the highlights of Preds Blues.
Oh, that's an unfortunate one for you, isn't it?
It is very unfortunate. But I want to ask you something else. So coming out of the Four Nations, Jordan Bennington, he's very streaky. We know this. He's very volatile. A lot of fans love to hate him, that type of thing. But how are you feeling about him in terms of, is he getting because the dude showed out against USA in the championship
He
game
did.
of the Four Nations. I mean, that dude, I got to call a spade a spade. That dude showed out especially in overtime. I mean, he propelled Canada to win that championship game in the Four Nations. So how are you feeling about Jordan Bennington's play throughout all of this? Is he kind of a big part of this right now, or is actually his play not even that relevant? It's more about the skaters in front of him.
I gotta say, right off the bat, it was so weird cheering against him in that tournament. That was just so strange. Obviously, he's been a Blue his entire career. He's been with their farm team for this whole time. So I've known him based off of that. But it's a whole different ballgame when you're cheering against a player, and especially in an international tournament like that, because you start to realize, okay, where is this guy's flaws and how are we going to beat him? And one of the coolest things about it is, when the tournament was all said and done, he didn't do a thing that surprised me. I'm gonna be honest. This is how Jordan Bennington's been all season. Last year, he even had a fantastic year. He just didn't have any defensive structure in front of him, and he's been exposed. It's really this is why you will never find me criticizing goaltenders of other teams that I don't watch, because the statistics can show you one thing and the game can show you a whole nother thing. When you have defensive structure, and Canada, holy smokes, it wasn't even close. That Canadian team was hands down the best team on paper. USA did a lot better in that tournament against them than I thought. I thought this was just going to be a runaway for Canada. I'm going to be honest.
I know I can't ask for this, but it would have been nice to at least gotten a best of 3. But
man, wouldn't that have been something?
But I don't want to critique the NHL too hard on that, because we're always so hard on the NHL for screwing up things, and they do screw up a lot of things. Like Gary Bettman, Gary Bettman bats like maybe 100 on a good day. But
what is with him? Sorry to interrupt for a second. What is with his obsession of just expanding this league to 36 teams?
You went down another rabbit hole, Max. But we got BFR in here, so let's ask him. Like, expanding the playoffs. If we're expanding the playoffs, even this year the Preds wouldn't make it. But let's ask you, Blues fan, you would definitely make it then.
Now, here's what I would do. I wouldn't extend the playoffs, but you know what I would do to discourage tanking teams? I would do a 17 through 32 playoff round robin for the first overall pick.
Honestly, okay, well that's fun.
That's fun.
But
I've
here's the
never
thing.
heard that.
Also, if you're expanding the playoff, if anything, you take a page out of the NBA's book and do like a play-in tournament for the final.
That's what I've been
teams.
saying.
But
But Gary Bettman's
that's
too
what you
proud.
do.
Gary Bettman's too proud. He would never ever.
Absolutely. Oh, you
He
know
would
it.
never ever take a page from the NBA. He would never do that. Even
Absolutely
though,
not.
honestly, I don't really ever give any credit to the NBA. You could never call me an NBA guy. I mean, I appreciate basketball. I appreciate basketball. I do. I grew up playing basketball, but I will give the NBA credit that their play-in tournament is actually kind of fun, and I do think it would translate to the NHL. But what about this? What about this, guys? What if we did a relegation? Like, you suck so bad, you're going to the AHL, and we're calling up a good team.
So what do you do then? You just take basically at that point. You're switching the 3 AHL and NHL teams, and your affiliations are different every year. Like
we're living in a fantasy world, Max.
I'm ever stay like the Preds. Like for example, the Preds just signed an extension to stay with Milwaukee forever. You could never do that in a relegation.
But if we're going to keep expanding the league like that, then why not? Fair. That's my point. I'm saying if we're going to live in this world where Bettman wants to go to 36 freaking teams, then why not?
If there was a proper league to relegate them to, I'd say fuck yeah.
How fun would that be? How fun would that be if you're watching?
If I never have to hear a Buffalo Sabres fan on Twitter again, that'd be too soon.
How fun would it be if it's Preds versus Blues in 2028? Let's go 4 years down the road. 3 years down the road. Let's say that the Preds and the Blues are on primetime TV and the loser has to go to the AHL. You can't tell me that the ratings wouldn't be blasting through the roof.
Oh yeah.
You can't tell me those players are going to put every ounce of everything they got on that game
exactly.
too. Holy
We're
shit.
probably living in fantasy land, but I just want to say that would be fun. But
you know.
All right. So here, I want to ask you one more thing, Mason, while we got you about the Blues.
Absolutely.
And if they do make the playoffs, they're going to be a wild card team, obviously. So you're probably going to get Winnipeg or Vegas. Do you give your team any chance to have some magic and just and just make a run? And who would you rather face? Who would you rather face in the first round?
Who would I rather face? Probably Winnipeg. Because the Blues have shown up and I've been to 2 games in St. Louis where they've played Winnipeg, and both times the Blues played very well against them. There was one at the very beginning of the season where Winnipeg was already at that point 8-0-0. You know, they were already on their fantastic start.
Yeah.
And the Blues almost forced overtime. So it was a 2-2 game until about 3 minutes left, and then Winnipeg finally pulled ahead. It was I can't even remember the circumstances, but I remember coming out of that game going, wow, Blues almost beat them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like the Blues have always had more of a chance against a team like Winnipeg versus a team like Vegas. So there was a stretch for about 5 years where the Blues, where the Knights could not beat the Blues in regulation. And it seems that has kind of turned around as, regimes change, players have changed, all that fun stuff. And especially since Pietrangelo left, of course, he's just going to own us. He's going to smack us around every time that we play him. I would rather play Winnipeg, though. And one of the biggest reasons I think that is because if I'm Winnipeg, St. Louis is the last team I want to play. You know what I mean? When it comes to the wild card spot, because Vancouver makes the playoffs. I mean, they've been dealing with Demko injuries. They're just had they don't have any momentum. Let's look at Calgary. I mean, that's such an old core. Huberdeau's having a little bit of a resurgence, but other than that, there's no big, storylines coming out of Calgary. They still can't figure out their goaltending. What else is new? You could probably wipe the floor with them. Now you got the Blues, who are 12-2-1 since the freaking All-Star break.
Yeah.
And not only that, they have, in terms of points percentage, the easiest remaining schedule in the NHL.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good nugget.
Yes, they do. The average points percentage of all of their opponents until the end of the season is .521.
Wow. And honestly, we haven't even talked about this, but Minnesota has only got a 2-point lead on you guys for the top wild card
No,
spot.
Matt Zuccarello was. I think he came out recently. Was like, yeah, like we're worried about even making the playoffs.
I mean, no, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, but going into the season, I had no faith in Minnesota. I think I might have picked. I'm going to be wrong on this prediction, but I think I had them like 7th in the division, and they're not going to fall to 7th. But my point is, I've never trusted Minnesota because I just don't think they have the depth. Like,
I feel they're too top heavy. Absolutely.
In Minnesota's defense, Kirill Kaprizov has not played for the entire second half of the year.
True. That's
so
true.
That's a thing to consider too. Like my thing with Minnesota, where I feel like Preds fans are somewhat vindicated, is like one thing we learned about John Hines, coach of the Preds, is his teams are extremely streaky. Like there were times like the Preds would start off the season really badly, then finish well, then they start off really well, then do badly. You kind of see the same thing in Minnesota a little because they started out really well, now they're crashing out. But they don't have Kirill Kaprizov, and that's always something that they'll be able to look back and say, "What if?"
I mean, the way I see it right now, it would not surprise me at all if Minnesota actually crashed and burned and actually fell out of the playoff race, and Vancouver sneaks in.
I'm gonna be honest. I think that's the more likely scenario.
I mean, anything can happen, but that's just what I see. I haven't liked how Minnesota has been trending for a while now. Like I really haven't.
Even without Kaprizov, they're still really crashing out. Even with that,
I mean, and that's just one player. I mean, it's hockey. Like even if he gets back with the team, I mean, I just don't like where this team is at right now at all. And it's all about momentum this time of year. And Minnesota's momentum is crashing. St. Louis's momentum is shooting to the moon. And Vancouver is just kind of like a weird stalking.
Vancouver's been a soap opera with the whole thing between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson.
No, Vancouver
really still haven't recovered from that.
I think Vancouver is just the creeping, stalking guy in the alley that's just like waiting to pounce.
I just feel like that locker room hasn't recovered from all that. You know what I mean?
But someone has to get in, Mason. Someone has to get that last spot.
That's very true. It's very true. I think by necessity. I mean, I feel like up until the Blues have kind of had their hot streak, it's been a case of no, you have it. No, you have it. No, you.
That's
you
how
take
it is.
The second wild card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
the West.
It's just been very strange. And so I think St. Louis, I guess, if you look at it from an outside perspective, is just like nobody else wants it. Fine, we'll take it.
Well, no, the way I feel about it is if you're talking about all these teams are like playing hot potato to get the last wild card spot, if you're talking about the most dangerous team who can get that hot potato, I would say it's St. Louis. I will say that. I'll give you credit with there. But we'll see what happens with that. But while we got you, Mason, if you still want to stick around, let's through our playoff update segment, let's shift to the East for a second. Because the Atlantic Division is crazy right now. I mean, you're talking about 3 teams within 2 points of first place, which is like, how fun is that? I mean, I'm down here in the Tampa area now, and you've got the Lightning, who are as good as dead in terms of their dynasty. And I'm not saying they're going to rebuild their dynasty, but my point is they definitely weren't expected to be pushing for first place in a stacked Atlantic Division with Florida and Toronto. And you've got Toronto and Florida at 89 points and Tampa at 87 points. All 3 teams have played the same amount of games. And Tampa gets Florida and Toronto both head to head to finish out the season. So if you're an NHL purist fan and you love seeing this stuff, you got to be watching this 3-horse race in the Atlantic Division.
And I think whichever one of them, and I've said this before on this podcast, I think assuming this is the matchup, whichever one of Tampa, Florida, or Toronto gets Ottawa, assuming that happens, I think that's going to be a tough series for any one of those teams.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you're kind of just playing for who you're going to play against and who you match up better with. But like, you look at the wild card race, you got Ottawa and Montreal, who is in there now, and you've got the Islanders and the Rangers right on the bubble, on the line with 74 points. You even got Columbus hanging around with 73. You got Detroit hanging around with 72. So, like, I mean, with 10 or 11 games left in the season, we have no clue, guys, who is really going to be in some of these first-round matchups. And that's, as a hockey fan, you just love to see this. So, Mason, looking at the Eastern Conference, what are you into, man? Like, what's kind of like got you going here?
I'm just praying for Tampa's downfall at this point.
Oh,
I'm sick of it when it's the same team over and over and over
when
again.
it's
You've
not
been
the
to the
same
finals
team.
3 times. It's time for you to suffer a little bit like the rest of us.
But I'm not suffering. I'm a Preds fan. What do you mean suffering? I've suffered enough.
You're telling me, buddy.
You gotta wait a minute.
Happy.
Time out.
I got my cup to fall back on, but it took us.
Yeah, that's what I was about to call
years.
you out on.
Oh, it's been a nice refresher, to be honest.
You can't even speak on this. You have a Stanley Cup in your back pocket.
It's true.
And that Stanley Cup probably weighs pretty heavy.
Oh, it does.
And no matter how, I mean, I wish that I could watch the Preds suck some nights and think, well, I still got the Stanley Cup in my back pocket at least. I don't have that.
Here's the biggest problem with having that. If any fan that you've had on the show who has seen their team win a Stanley Cup in color, if any of them have said anything like, oh, yeah, we got the cup to fall back on, let me tell you something. You can watch the replay over and over again, but the second you start tweeting after a bad loss, hey, at least we got a Stanley Cup, every other franchise fucking hates you.
Yeah.
Get out of 2019. Get out of 2019.
That's a horrible comeback, though. So I mean,
That's true.
That shouldn't be your first comeback.
Oh, never.
We got a cup. But I will say, I want to ask you one more thing, Mason, real quick. And I love having you on, man. It's great to hear from you. But Ryan O'Reilly won the Conn Smythe with you guys. He has shown his ultimate loyalty to Nashville. I mean, I was really writing about it and beating the drum in early December that not that I wanted him traded, but that he was the best trade chip for Nashville. And it turns out Nashville did get plenty of calls about him. Who knows exactly what happened behind closed doors for why that didn't happen. But Ryan O'Reilly, in public at least, has always said he is loyal to Nashville. And I love that dude. I mean, in interviews recently, he has really been critical of his own game. Do we still got you, Mason? I think we might have lost Mason.
Yeah.
I think we did. But Max, you can answer me on this. Ryan O'Reilly has always been so loyal to Nashville, but he had the St. Louis connection. He's won a Stanley Cup. We'll see if Mason jumps back in. But I just keep thinking about Ryan O'Reilly and how he calls himself out in post-game interviews. That's so rare in sports these days.
Yeah.
To see a guy who is as accomplished as he is. I mean, this guy doesn't owe anybody anything. Right. I mean, he's been at the pinnacle. He has nothing to really prove at this point in his career. He could retire tomorrow if he wanted to. But the guy has shown his loyalty to the Nashville Predators through the lowest of lows in this franchise's history. That speaks so much to Ryan O'Reilly. And, I mean, I just want to see that guy have success, really, more than anything.
It seems like he sees something in this franchise. I mean, it's hard to – I mean, they're going through it right now, but, I mean, he's not – I mean, a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, I don't think is going to be totally loyal for no reason. I mean, if you heard if you've heard about his time in Toronto, like he pretty much left there even when he had more money on the table, and then when they thought about potentially trading him back there, he had like no interest. Like he clearly a guy like that who's been through it and see how things work. You know, he clearly doesn't like something about Toronto, and he thinks something with us is better. And I think the Preds have a lot to, and everyone agree. The Preds have a lot to evaluate as far as what are we doing as a franchise? What changes do we need to make? But again, O'Reilly sees something, and the guy, like you said, just being how critical of himself he is. The guy, leads by example for every young, veteran or young player, whether you're a veteran, maybe you've 27, whatever you are. Ryan O'Reilly is an example of someone who you can follow and be like, if you can be like Ryan O'Reilly, doing a pretty good thing. I remember him, last week after the game against Anaheim, he called himself out, not even for his play, which he even said, like, I feel like I haven't done anything meaningful in a long time, but he even called himself out as a leader too. Yeah. And I remember in one of the games early in the year against November, he went out to the media and said, like, guys, that was like one of the worst games I've ever played. Like, he even said, like, I was pathetic this game.
I appreciated that.
Yeah. I mean, you rarely see that nowadays.
Yeah. So we're about to actually segue into a new topic in episode 264 about how quickly can the Preds actually reload, if we want to call it that. Before we do that, let's tell you about our OG sponsor, that is DraftKings, with promo code THPN. The NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, and that is even more true after our playoff race update. That's why we love hockey so much, is it's so unpredictable. But that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out. We're about to talk about the Predators and how they can figure things out. But games left for you to get in the action on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet just $5. That's it. Just $5. Just an Abraham Lincoln. And get 150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available. For problem gambling, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. NHL and NHL team marks are the property of the NHL and its teams. NHL 2025, all rights reserved. So a good offer there for you guys as the NHL season really wraps up here in the last 10 plus games here. And one more thing I want to wrap up with this NHL lottery odds before we talk about the Preds trying to reload here is just we're going to have a deep dive draft episode, everyone. We're a little early before we really dive into that. But I do want to at least give an appetizer to you all because I have been looking at this draft class, and the top 5 looks really good. This is a very top-heavy draft class. If you look at all the main scouts and analysts who cover the draft, they're even a little outside the top 5. You can probably find a generational talent if you're really make a good pick, but you really want to be in that top 5 this year. It's not like the Connor Bedard draft, the Nashville draft that I actually got the privilege to go to, where Connor Bedard got drafted by the Blackhawks, that top 10 was loaded with crazy talent. It's not that kind of draft class this year, but it is top 5 heavy loaded, according to the analyst. So when it comes to the Preds, I mean, could they get hot and play their way out of the top 5? I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but they're looking pretty safe to pick in the top 5.
I would say so, but you never know, Will. You never know.
And when we're talking about team needs, a lot of people are about take the best player available. A lot of people are in that studio of thought.
They're like, for the NHL, I would say that's especially the case, because especially if these guys don't play year one. So I would say that's especially the case in the NHL. Granted, I think if you have whatever need this team has, that's more than anything. I'd say it's center. Next is probably right defense, but ideally you take a center, but really best
Well,
player.
You've got Schaefer, who is a right defenseman.
No, Reed Schaefer, he's a winger, I thought.
No, I'm talking about draft class.
Oh,
Matthew Schaefer.
Okay, never mind.
Not Reed Schaefer. No, Matthew Schaefer. I'm talking about the draft class here. He is a right shot defenseman who is, a lot of analysts are picking him as number 1 overall pick, but some people are saying Missa is number 1 overall now, who has got like 130 plus points in the Ontario Hockey League right now. 60 something games and 130 points. Video game type numbers. He's can play winger or center. And then you've got Higgins, who plays for Boston College, who is a true center. So a lot of people are picking Higgins as the pick in mock drafts for the Predators, but that's if the Predators pick 3rd overall. If the Predators slide back to 4th or 5th, you've still got some good options there. We'll do a deep dive on that. We'll save that for a future episode because there's still a lot that has to play out here. But the point is, it's a top-heavy draft class. That's what a lot of the analysts are saying. So we'll leave that there for a future episode. But let's get into what we currently have, Max. Let's talk about the current roster and who is most important to a reload. Not a rebuild, but a reload. I've been throwing that term out a lot lately because I think that's what Barry Trotz has in mind here, is he wants to reload. Do we have it on this current roster? Does it lie among the veterans? Can they just suddenly wake up? Or is it going to take a young player to really hit their stride? Maybe it's Luke Evangelista. I don't know. But Max, give me your thoughts.
I mean, for a team like the Preds, I mean, there's no one thing or one player.
So give me a couple players.
That's good. Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a few players that, number one, this team, it's obvious this team has to get younger, like in the worst possible way. Like forward, like top 6 average age, like 33.5. That's never going to work. And honestly,
that's not what Barry Trotz is saying, Max. He wants to sign a veteran right-handed defenseman this offseason.
Either way, I'll say I honestly can't believe I overlooked that as much as I did going into the season. But still, if you're thinking about players that you need really for the future that are going to be really important to making this team better, obviously, Luke Evangelista is one that you're really hoping for.
But he's an RFA, Max, so he's probably dead set to get re-signed, right?
You got to bring him back. Zachary Leroux, you want to see good things from him. Fedor Svechkov, huge guy, important for the future. And I know he's a veteran, but he's still for the future, for the long haul. Philip Forsberg, he's super important too. He's got 5 more years on his contract after this one. That's still quite a while. And on defense, you want to see, I really want to see Justin Barron take a step forward. He was going to be traded for Alexander Carey. I still question that to this day. I like Justin Barron's upside a lot, but he still has a lot of work to do before, especially on the defensive side of things. He's a guy I'd like to see do well for the future. There's a lot of guys on defense that, you would hope at least a few of them are going to pan out. Like I said, Justin Barron, Spencer Stasny, Adam Wilsby, Nick Blankenberg. I'm sure not. Then you have guys like Tanner Molendyke, Ryan Ufko, and Andrew Gibson who haven't played yet. Probably not all of those guys are going to work out, but you have quantity there. You're definitely going to want at least a few of them, especially Molendyke. You're going to want him to pan out for sure. And then both your goaltenders you need for the future for sure.
So real quick, Max, you were going through the defensemen, and what's really interesting about that is all of them are signed through next season, with the exception of Andreas England, who probably is not going to stick around. I wouldn't think.
Mark Delgaizo is not. He got waived again today. We can accept him for the future,
but I don't think he'll get claimed.
Nah, probably not.
Because a team can't use him this season.
Yeah.
There's weird rules this time of year when you claim a player. But it's weird that they did waive him, though. I found that kind of shocking.
This is the third time this year he's been waived.
Kiefer Bellows also got waived today by the Preds. But when we look at defensemen for next season, it kind of gives you a little bit of a thought process with Barry Trotz. I don't know. If we're talking about quick reload, and if you can you need Adam Wilsby, who unfortunately hit IR this season. I thought he was showing a lot of promise. I was enjoying watching him play.
One other guy too you need, and this is not going to be as popular because he hasn't played well and he's really overpaid so far, but you really need to see something out of Brady Shea. You do. He signed
of course. He signed for 7 years.
I mean, it's Captain Obvious, but yeah, you need something from him. And I believe today's his birthday, actually. So happy birthday to Brady Shea.
Happy birthday to Brady Shea. You're here, and we want you to succeed as hard as we've been on you.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the defenseman, I think Adam Wilsby has to really be like I don't want to say the savior, but he has to take a big step forward next season.
We need to see something out of at least him or Spencer Stasny, I would say.
Yeah. And they're both
one of them.
I get where Barry Trotz is coming from when it comes to a right shot defenseman, because we are overloaded with left
graveyard right now.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I'm on Puckpedia.
Your best right shot defenseman is Nick Blankenberg, who wasn't even supposed to play in the NHL this year.
I'm about to mind blow everybody. According to Puckpedia, there are 2 right shot defensemen on the current Preds roster right now.
Yeah.
Nick Blankenberg and Justin Barron.
Yeah, like literally it's so top heavy. And here's what honestly, this is gonna be this might not be a popular opinion, but honestly, and with how many left shot defensemen there are on this team, do you potentially think about trading a guy like Spencer Stasny? Because not everyone is going to have room. You're just not going to have it. He's 25 now. I mean, I would ideally not like for that to happen, but you got so many left-handed defensemen on this roster. Obviously, Roman Josi. We haven't even talked about Roman Josi. He's still here, I'm sure, going to be for a while. Brady Shea, Adam Wilsby, Tanner Molendyke hasn't even played yet. I mean, again,
look, I feel really bad about saying this, but I don't feel super confident about Spencer Stasny.
I don't either. I used to be, but I'm not so much anymore.
And it has nothing to do with his absence to begin the season.
No.
That's not what I'm getting at here. It has nothing to do with that. I don't know how he's going to fit in next season. And we've got it on the screen here from Puckpedia, the defensemen for the Preds. And they're all signed through next season, except for Andreas England and Mark Delgaizo, who just got waived today. So we'll see how that works out. But, I mean, no right shot defenseman, basically. Yeah. None. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out – I get where Barry Trotz is coming from in that regard when it comes to we need a right shot defenseman right now really bad. I get where he's coming from there when I really look at the current contracts and what's going on. But the point when we talk about reloading next season, I think Adam Wilsby is really important. When it comes to bouncing back, when it comes to shaking the narrative, because the narrative right now around this team is that they're going to suck for a few years. That's the narrative. That's the dark cloud over this franchise, is that they're going to suck and we should buckle up and get ready for it. And I'm not saying that people who feel that way are wrong. I kind of agree with them. I think it's going to be ugly for a couple of years. But if I'm going to be proven wrong and those people are going to be proven wrong, what it's going to take is these players I'm about to name. And even before last night's performance, I would have said this. Luke Evangelista has to elevate his game. I know he has the offensive raw talent. I know he can do what he did last night. What he did last night really didn't surprise me that much, Max. I wasn't surprised by it. I know he can do that kind of stuff. Like, my problem is with Luke Evangelista is, can he live up to the physicality of a top 6 forward?
Yeah, that's the big
daily grind. I'm not so sure he can. Like, he gets bullied off the puck a lot. And I don't know if he can be a long-term top 6 dynamic winger. I don't know. We'll find out next season. I think next season is his prove-it year. He's an RFA. I absolutely think the Predators should do everything they can to re-sign him.
They better.
Of course they should. And they better. And they shouldn't have any problem doing that. But it's going to be a prove-it year, and I don't think the Predators are going to sign him long-term.
Oh, I don't think so either, but you better not lose him, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. So he's a big one. He's an obvious choice. Adam Wilsby's another one. Fedor Svechkov, who you brought up, Max.
Yep.
Can Fedor here is actually the X factor for me. And I'm not putting my money on this. But crazy things happen in sports all the time. And we have seen glimpses of Fedor Svechkov doing this kind of thing. And let's remember that Svechkov has been thrown into the fire way earlier than anyone planned on it being. Even Trotz admitted that the plan wasn't for Svechkov to be thrown in this early. But everything went off the rails, so Svechkov got thrown in. If Svechkov can prove himself next season to actually be what Tommy Novak wasn't, I'm just throwing it out there. Things look very different in 2025-26, especially if you get a top 5 draft pick. I'm just throwing that nugget out there, Max. If they get a top 5 draft pick and they draft a generational talent, let's say I like Missa a lot, or Higgins, or even Schaefer, the right shot defenseman. Let's say they get one of those 3 guys, and Svechkov takes that step forward next season. We're feeling a lot different about the reload suddenly. I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, that's lofty hopes, obviously. You know, you're hoping
very lofty. Very lofty.
You're hoping Svechkov ascends to that true second line center role. It's probably that's probably a little lofty. He's definitely, I'm sure he's still gonna be that kind of tweener between third and second line, probably. Then you also have to hope that whoever comes in, who even if a top 5 pick, you're gonna have to hope that they're going to be a year 1 impact. You don't know that for sure. I mean, realistically, I mean, you never know what could happen. My thought is I'm not all that concerned with this team, being anything like making crazy noise next year. Pretty much my thought is, just get younger, whether that's, and even, no matter what you do, if you can just sign for or trade for guys, whatever you're doing, to make a serious effort to really get younger and balance out your leadership. And one thing I've been saying for a long time now, it's pretty much since the start of this year, if you could find ways to balance out your veteranosity, skill, your veteranosity, grit and intangibles with youth, skill, and speed, That's what I want to see, and I think that will help the team long term in that regard.
Well, I don't think the Preds have any other choice. I think they're going to have to get younger. I think Trotz finally realizes that this team's going to have to get younger. Even if he does go out and sign a veteran right shot defenseman, which he said he wants to do this offseason, this team's going to have to get younger.
Do you know a right shot defenseman who's a free agent this offseason?
Oh, yeah. I was still looking that up, and I never actually.
Oh, do you know who is one? Dante Fabro.
Yes, that was one.
Dante Fabro's a free agent, guys. Let's go get him back.
How I would undo what you screwed up on, Barry Trotz.
If that actually happened, I swear that'd be something.
It wouldn't surprise me, honestly. Actually, yeah, I did make a short list of those defensemen.
I haven't really looked at it yet, I will say.
Here it is right here. UFA right defenseman per Puckpedia. Neil Pionk from Winnipeg, Aaron Ekblad, Brent Burns, Cody Ceci, and Dante Fabro. Those were the top 5. After that, it's like all like arbitrary at that point.
Yeah, I mean, how old is? I mean, Ekblad would cost. And I forgot how old is he? 29. I mean, I'm sure he'll be okay. I mean, I guess it's unpredictable. Aaron Ekblad did just get suspended 20 games for like PEDs, I believe.
Yeah,
which is
insane. I mean, Aaron Ekblad would be interesting for sure.
He would cost a lot, though.
He would cost a lot of money.
So much. Like maybe even more than Brady Shea.
But since when did Trotz care about spending money?
Yeah, I mean, it's how he's gotten most of his guys. I mean, but if Trotz wants to really become if he wants to, take the next step as a GM, and it's early in his tenure, but he has to do a lot better, drafting and developing homegrown talent.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to is you can go buy all you want to buy.
That's how you win. Pretty much every team, pretty much every team that I can think of besides like the Los Angeles Rams and like the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe there's other examples, some exceptions. Pretty much every other team who's won a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl, whatever. It's all about drafting and developing homegrown talent.
Of course.
Building that foundation with homegrown developed talent.
And there's a weird cultural thing going on with the Preds right now that is you have to call it out. I mean, how is Mark Jankowski scoring 6 goals in 7 games or whatever it was for the
Now,
game?
I do think his shooting percentage is insane. I don't expect that to continue.
But he's just one of several examples.
You're right, though. Like anyone who leaves the Preds will go elsewhere and do really well.
And some of those players have cooled off. Like it seems like they always like shoot up like a rocket when they first leave and then they cool off. But the point is, there's definitely something culturally broken with the Preds right now.
Yeah.
So you can buy. Trotz can try to buy his way out of it all he wants, and he might do that with a right shot defenseman this offseason, as he's saying. But is that really going to fix the reload of this team? I mean, we also have to call it out like it is. The season before, a lot of guys had overperformed.
Oh, yeah.
Gus Nyquist overperformed.
And everyone knew that was the case.
The shooting percentages that you saw from this team were insane. And they kind of came back to reality to the opposite end of the spectrum this year. This year, the Predators can't buy a goal. Their team shooting percentage is among the worst in recent times.
It's not even really a coaching or like Trotz efficiency. That's just guys not executing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like bad luck in a lot of ways. I mean, there is luck involved in it. But when you're talking about 70-plus games into a season, you can't blame luck anymore.
Right.
Like I was blaming luck in the first 20, 30 games. I was saying, like, look, this team's got bad luck. The pucks aren't bouncing their ways. I was one of those people. I really was.
I still kind of am to a certain degree. Just thinking, like, just get like a clean slate next year. Like, how much does that change, honestly? I mean,
I think the best case scenario, and fans don't want to hear this, but the best case scenario for 2025-26 is this team becomes another playoff bubble team. But fans want a Stanley Cup. And it's going to take time. It's going to take culture. It's going to take drafting and developing prospects, like you just said, Max. It's going to take that for this franchise to probably win a Stanley Cup.
And let me also say,
and that's going to take multiple years into the future. So when we think about 2025, 26, yeah, of course, anything crazy can happen. Any team can get hot at the right time, sneak into the playoffs, and do something magical, similar to what the Preds did in 2016, 2017, quite frankly. Everyone had that team dead in the water. That team barely snuck in the playoffs. And they took the Penguins and Sidney Crosby to 6 games. So, yes, anything can happen. But when it comes to reality and realistically speaking, 2025-26 is probably going to be, at very best case scenario, another playoff bubble season. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario and more realistic scenario in my mindset is they're going to be a non-playoff contender. They're going to go through the really tough growing pains. They're going to have to start developing talent, like you're saying, Max. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take a couple years to see what they got in their prospect pool. Let's get Tanner Molendyk up here. Let's get Joakim Kimmel up here. Let's get these guys up here, and let them grow. And they're going to make a lot of mistakes, and we're not going to be good for a few years. But let's benefit from getting some high top 10 draft picks, which we're about to put the Smashville stat of the week up there. But let's get some top draft picks. Let's start building that prospect pull up a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it for 2025-26.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a couple more things to do here. We got to do the Smashville stat of the week. We got to do Titans time. But let's answer one quick question. We'll run through this quick. Who is one former Preds player that the team has lost in the last 2 years that you want back the most?
Honestly, and I went back and forth a little bit, but if I had to have one deciding factor, just because we lost him for absolutely nothing, I'd say Dante Fabro. And he's a right shot defenseman. Man, he would have been. Man,
I respect that answer.
That's crazy they screwed that up.
I respect that answer a lot. That's not what I was going to say, but I'm right there with you. I would say Ryan McDonough for me.
That's understandable too. I was like between probably like I was also going to potentially throw Philip Tomasino in there, but
we need a culture guy so bad.
Here's the thing. Now, the thing about culture here that I want to talk about, and I brought this up a little with you, Chad, but I'll kind of speak to it a little. I saw something. If you follow Rono Analyst on Twitter, he's like one of those guys who posts he's not quite like Jay Fresh, but he's somewhat like that, where he posts like underlying numbers of players and stuff. And he made a post about Jack Eichel, how when he was in Buffalo, everyone thought like it almost seemed like he was kind of bringing down their culture in a way, blah blah. But he goes to Vegas and he's totally fine. Culture, and here's the Preds can learn a thing or two of this. What Barry Trotz has done, like he's brought in guys like Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Shen, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. Like Barry Trotz has gone so heavy into, trying to, help the culture of this team. But what the Preds are missing with that, obviously the skill on the ice, no speed. This team the top 6 is old as hell. They don't mesh together, all kinds of stuff. And here's the key. You don't have culture without winning. The Preds don't have winning right now. And I'm not going to say like, oh, culture is only winning, but you don't have culture without winning. And that's also where your personnel matters too. You got to, again, it's all about balancing it out. The Preds have to balance out, like I say, this grit and tenacity and all that with skill and speed and youth.
Yeah. No, I get that. Dante Fabro is a good choice by you. I agree with that one, but what about Matt Duchene? Neither one of us named Matt Duchene.
That one absolutely hurts, and especially seeing
the fact they bought him out.
Yeah,
and to see what he's doing for Dallas now.
Yeah, and I don't have him quite up there just because he's older and he probably wouldn't have been a part of like the long-term core. But yeah, no doubt that one. Yeah, the Preds screwed that one up too. And for a guy who wanted to be in Nashville so bad through the end of his career.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and then see him go.
Dante Fabro is a good one by you, though. Like, it's hard to argue against that one. I mean, I would love to have Dante Fabro still on this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can settle on that one for sure. All right, let's get to the Smashville stat of the week. And since the Predators are likely, almost certainly, going to be picking in the top 10 at the very least, it would surprise you maybe to know that the Predators have actually, for the most part of their history, been a really good regular season team. Not counting this season. And so they haven't gotten a lot of top 10 picks other than early on in their history.
Yeah.
So if they do indeed end up picking 10th overall or top 10 this upcoming draft, it will be their first time picking top 10 since they took Seth Jones in 2013.
Yeah.
Which at the time was considered a pretty good pick. And he hasn't turned out to be a really good NHL player despite his enormous contract that he got that was overpaid. But he didn't really bear the fruits of his labor for the Predators. That's the unfortunate part of that.
In typical Preds fashion, he got much better once he left Nashville.
But that was the Ryan Johansson trade.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a debate that anyone can have because Ryan Johansson did provide a lot of.
Oh yeah, I would still say it was a good trade.
It's a hard trade to grade. It's such a hard trade to grade. I've looked back on that trade, and I don't really think you can say one was a winner and one was a loser. It's kind of hard to say. But either way, it's kind of crazy to think that the Preds have not picked top 10 in the draft since 2013. They did take Kevin Fiala at 11th overall. And they did take Yaroslav Askarov at 11th overall. But both of those players even didn't really live long-term for the Preds. So the point I'm trying to make is the Preds have not picked high up in the draft for a player in a very, very long time when it comes to a player that actually made a long-term impact for their franchise. That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
So the Smashville stat of the week is the history of the Predators picking in the top 10. If they end up picking in the top 10, which it's foregone conclusion they are, it will only be the 8th time in their 26-year history they've picked in the top 10. And looking back at their history of picking in the top 10, they took David Legwand in their inaugural draft at 2nd overall. I've looked at that draft class. They made the right pick. Just trust me on that. Their 99 draft, they took a goalie, Brian Finley. That was a swing and a miss. That was bad. The guy played 4 games in the NHL. So yeah, we'll just try to forget that one. They took Scott Hartnell in the 2000 draft. That was a good one. We'll give them a bonus point for that one for sure. And then they took Scotty Upshaw 6th overall in 2002. Toss up. Ryan Suter 7th overall in 2003. As much as Preds fans hate him, he was a good pick at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where it gets really, really like that's when the Preds started being a regular season team. That's when they started making the playoffs. That's when they started not being one of the worst teams in the league. So this is such a weird territory for even long-term Predators fans, even for Predators fans that have been following this team since the beginning. This is such a weird place to be in.
Yeah.
To be talking about the NHL Draft Lottery right now. Normally, we're talking about the playoff bubble. Normally, we're talking about, are the Preds going to sneak into the playoffs? Who's our first-round matchup going to be? Do we have a chance? That's normally the conversation this time of year. But we're talking lottery. It's a weird feeling to have. In 2008, the Predators took Colin Wilson at 7th overall. He had a decent career, but dude, he didn't even hit 300 points for his NHL career. So, I mean, I would have to go back and look at that draft class to really know if that was a bad pick or not. But the Predators have picked 11th overall a few times. Ryan Ellis was a great pick. That was 11th overall. But the point I'm trying to make is they haven't picked top 10, and they certainly have not picked top 5 hardly ever in their history. So this is a weird spot we're in right now. Like I don't even know how to approach it. But a consolation prize for this horrible, painful season could be the fact that there are some really, really good generational talented prospects in this year's draft class if you're selecting top 5. So we'll save that for a future episode. But that's your Smashville stat of the week, is the fact that the Predators have not been in this position very often in their 26-year history. It's rare territory we're in right now. So with that said, Max, the floor is yours. It is Titans time. And let me introduce this segment to give you the ground running here. All I'm saying, Max, is that it seems pretty clear that the Titans have come to the conclusion they're going to take Cam Ward as their quarterback, first overall. That has been up in the air. I saw things about they were going to trade back and all these things. And you got Will Levis hanging around. You had some free agent quarterbacks that were in the rumor mill, but Jameis Winston's been signed. Aaron Rodgers is going to the. Is Aaron Rodgers been signed yet?
I don't know what the hell Aaron Rodgers is doing.
Okay.
I don't know.
Russell Wilson.
I don't know what's going on.
Wait a minute. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's going to the
Giants.
To the Giants.
And they were like the one team that was. I mean, maybe there's more, but like they were like the team that was like most heavily in talks to trade with the Titans for the number 1 pick, and they've signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So that tells me they are out on that idea.
So tell me what you're thinking here. It's Cam Ward, right?
It's at this point it seems like it's Cam Ward or bust. Like it seems like the NFL draft really begins at pick number 2. Like I do believe there was a time where the plan was looking like the Titans really could trade back, but they've met with Cam Ward a good few times. They met with him right before the week before free agency. They met with him at the Senior Bowl. There was a time before that, before the week before free agency, but they had they saw him at his pro day, and they had dinner with him the night before. And they're now scheduling their own workout for Cam Ward. I don't know what it is, but all signs point to the Titans taking Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. Yes.
Well, you know what? So if that ends up happening, who starts week 1? Is it Cam Ward?
Yes.
Is he the week 1 starter?
I would say so. And you never know what's going to happen, but Brian Callahan basically came out and said, if we're drafting a guy, he's going to start right away.
Okay. And I agree with that. I mean, if you're drafting number 1 overall, a quarterback, you better be ready for him to start.
I mean, it would make sense for him. It'd make more sense to keep him on the bench if there's another guy that,
but
the Titans don't have another guy that can really.
So Will Levis is going to be the backup?
Will Levis, who probably won't even be on the team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they very much might trade him. The Titans signed Brandon Allen as their backup quarterback, and today they just signed journeyman Tim Boyle
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so,
So,
I very much think the Titans, and I've heard rumors that Will Levis' name is being discussed in trade options. Now, the Titans aren't going to get much for him. I'm sure they won't get but like a late round pick swap.
but he's not going to be around.
If you had to put a gun to my head, I think Will Levis is not going to be on this roster.
Well, that doesn't really surprise me, honestly, because I mean, Callahan, let's make this safe for television if kids are watching, but I saw a lot of F-bombs thrown the way of Will Levis from Callahan.
You're really talking about that? Are you talking about when Levis had like the shovel fumble and then Callahan comes out like off the side? It's like, what the F are you doing?
Yeah, it was so funny, dude.
I saw that from my seats the moment before everyone knew what I was on TV, because I'm at the games and like I sit like low to the field. It's like I saw, of course I couldn't tell at the time what Callahan said, but I saw his body language clear as day. He was like, what are you doing?
In my head when I was watching that, I was thinking like walking up to him and thinking like, are you high right now? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you having a mental episode right now? But that's what Will Levis is. He makes crazy decisions in the middle of crucial moments in a game. And the guy has, I love the guy's competitive spirit, and I love the fact that he has a great arm and all these things. But when you're in the position the Titans are in right now, you can't gamble with that.
No, Will Levis and the Titans. I mean, besides the games he was injured, the Titans gave Levis his shot. They did.
Yeah, they
did.
Totally did.
Yeah, they can't. The Titans can't look back and be like, we didn't give him a chance. No, the Titans gave Will Levis his shot, and maybe he'll go out somewhere and be successful. Who knows?
And I've been watching
the bank on that.
I've been watching some scouting tape on Cam Ward, and he makes all of the types of throws that a top pick should make.
Yeah.
He's got NFL caliber intangibles.
Yeah.
Pocket presence, arm, accuracy.
No.
But what's something, Max, that holds him back a little bit, if you would say?
Yeah, I want to talk. I actually want to give my kind of breakdown of Cam Ward, and I will say, I'm sure my evaluation is going to be ongoing until the draft. My opinion may change come draft time. Hell, mine might change a bit a week from now. Again, especially with these quarterbacks, it is such a ongoing process, especially for me, because I'm just a guy on my couch. I don't even have a job.
No, I get it, but
my breakdown of Cam Ward at this point would be: there's a few I want to have 5 areas of potential weakness, and then 3 areas of like, okay, I'm like really on this guy. And I'm not saying, I hate this guy or anything, but here's what I'm going to say. So there's a few things with Cam Ward. I'll start out with kind of the weaknesses and kind of give my level of concern for each one. Cam Ward in college, he never really played in a pro-style offense. He played in an air raid offense at both Washington State and Miami. And that's one of those things that doesn't really translate so well to the NFL. Now, I did see a lot of, some NFL like style, plays he made. I've seen him do things such as go through multiple reads in the play a lot of time and make quick decisions, stuff like that. But so I think that gives me hope, but just the fact that he's never really played, and granted, NFL nowadays, there's a lot of like pre-snap motion and all that. So like there's, not so traditional concepts, but at the end of the day, the NFL, at least for quarterbacks, is a drop back passing league. And, and also not just going all the way down the field. There's short routes, intermediate routes, long routes too. So, Cam Ward's got to be able to do that consistently. Again, he's shown that he can operate NFL concepts, but we just got to see that consistently. So that's one thing. Another thing for a while I was concerned about was whether or not he could play under pressure. I will say that concern I really don't have anymore, because I did go back and watch more of it. If it is at least some of his tape from Washington State, I did see him make a good few throws, while under duress while getting hit. And I want also read Cam Ward versus the Blitz his senior year, which was in Miami. 70% completion rate, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 5 turnover-worthy plays, 10 big-time throws, and a 128.5 passer rating. Wow. That's really encouraging right there. So clearly, the guy can operate under pressure. Let's not harp on that much anymore. I can back off that one right there. Probably at this point, my biggest concern for Cam Ward, and there's still other things I want to get into, just the overall consistency, and it really showed in his senior year at Miami. Cam Ward was known as one of those guys who like had that clutch factor late in games. So, lead game-winning drives, comebacks. He led his team from I believe a 28-point deficit when they played against Cal on the road. So again, the guy can, show up in the moments, but can he be consistent across 60 minutes? That's where I'm like, and that's one of those things that's kind of hard to evaluate because, the team around Cam Ward at Miami was not the greatest. And again, NFL games are going to be close. So it's good to, be able to operate in close games, but NFL games, they're harder to come back from and they're easier to get away from you. And another thing kind of about Cam Ward that leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth is how Miami was in the driver's seat for like the ACC title. They were going to go to the playoff and they kind of blew it down the stretch. And Cam Ward didn't play. And I remember watching when my school, Wake Forest, played against Miami, like second to last week of the regular season. I wasn't all, for a 60-minute effort, wasn't all that impressed with Cam Ward. And again, it's a team game. I know it 100%. But if you're like the number one overall pick clear cut, I feel
that's what I was getting at.
You're going to be more consistent and you're not going to let it slip like Miami did, especially in that their last regular season game. They still had a shot. They're up 21-0 against Syracuse and they blow that game.
What scares me about this whole situation is you have the number one pick. You can't screw this up.
Right.
And there's been plenty of drafts in the past for the NFL where the number one pick was a dead-on ringer. It was like, you take this guy.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't even have to
right.
But this year, I feel like it's not necessarily that case.
It's not so cut and dry.
But I do think that Cam Ward, like you're saying, could end up being a great pick. It's just it's scary for me as a Titans fan because it's not like the Titans are picking 5th and talking about taking Cam Ward, or they're picking 8th or 7th or 9th and talking about taking Cam Ward. They got the number one overall pick. I mean, you cannot take that lightly. They got the number one overall pick. You do not want to be the team that is one day remembered 10 years from now for making a bust pick at number one overall. Now, that's what scares me.
Now, here's a few things. I haven't quite finished all my negatives about Cam Ward, but I will get into some positives on why you can really justify Cam Ward number one. Now, finishing out kind of my negatives or / somewhat worries about Cam Ward, people have kind of talked about, and one thing that's been talked about a lot is like his ball security, holding on to the football, making like stupid turnovers, sort of like Will Levis did. Now, I will say Cam Ward was a much better player in college than Will Levis was. And when you actually look at that, Cam Ward does have some like turnovers that make you go like, whoa, like how did he do that? But his overall like turnover percentage is nowhere near even what a guy like what Levis was in college. He's definitely better than that. And there's also certain things too, like whenever he's like running with the football in his hands, like he'll tend to hold the football like right out instead of keeping close to his chest. That I'm not so worried about. That's
something you can get better with.
That's very correctable. But either way, the overall like ball security and turnovers that's been an issue, that I'm actually not quite as worried about with Cam Ward. Another thing I do want to talk about a little bit, one of Cam Ward's, like probably the thing he's known for the most is his playmaking ability. Even though he is a guy that I've seen on tape, he does actually prefer to play in structure, which is good. He does a lot of like where he makes a name for himself is like off-platform plays and throws and all that. Now, when I think to last year's class, Caleb Williams is known for a lot of the same thing, and he was a much better prospect than Ward, and he really struggled in his rookie year. So I'm a little bit worried that same thing could happen with Cam Ward, just because we saw Williams struggle. And he was a much better prospect. Again, there's different situations for sure. That is a little bit of a potential red flag there. But again, it's everyone's different. But let me get into some real reasons you can justify Cam Ward number one. Anyone who's been around Cam Ward will tell you he's one of those guys who's like a stone cold like killer, a guy that comes in and just changes your culture from the start. Like he elevated a Washington State program that's never been a great program. Like for a while, they've just been bad. And he came in and he changed things over there. He did great. Went into like games into Washington, Oregon, and played
Yeah,
really
but
well.
devil's advocate. Okay, you did that at Washington. Are you going to do that in an NFL locker room?
But still, my point is, like, and even at Miami too, like, he's one of those guys that will come in and again, the Titans brass, they've been around him. So they can kind of see that this is a personality thing, and guys coming in seeing what this guy's all about. I very much believe he could be one of those guys that really comes in and changes the culture for sure with Cam Ward. Number two, and maybe this is even more important than that, Cam Ward, at least at the level he's been playing quarterback, has really not been doing it for that long. Like, when he played in high school, he was in a system where like he almost like never threw the football. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, he started out the FCS level, but ascended his way to Washington State, then Miami. Point being, the guy has shown he can be a really, really, really quick learner, and that's important. So that's another thing, and also another thing too. And this isn't so much of a positive, but a reason why like a guy like Cam Ward really you can justify as number one. The Titans brought in Brian Callahan. They made the shift to a passing offense because that's what they want to be. They brought in Brian Callahan because they believed in what he can do working with quarterbacks. And if you're bringing a guy like Cam Ward, that's the perfect opportunity to develop a guy and show you as a coach, Brian Callahan, can develop this guy, show your worth as a head coach. So, I mean, it's going to be a great opportunity for the Titans to get a true answer on Brian Callahan for sure.
Brian Callahan has a chance to get his guy in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, like he's not going to go into last year. Like the answer kind of in a way was to the goal was to get an answer on like if Will Levis is a guy. Obviously, he's proven not. Yeah. This year, it's to really get a big part of the objective this year is to get an answer on Brian Callahan. And last year, he had the excuse of he inherited Will Levis. This time, he's going to be handpicking his own quarterback. So that excuse is going to be out the window. This is going to be Brian Callahan's guy.
So there's what's the percentage chance you would put on it that the Titans take
Cam Ward? Whatever is
90%,
99.999.
Oh, you're that sure of it?
Like it's going to happen. Like now, I will say, if it doesn't happen,
it's not going to be Shedeur Sanders.
It's the most elaborate smokescreen we've ever seen.
It's not going to be Shedeur Sanders.
No, it's going to be Cam Ward.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's
good to know.
No, it's going to be Cam Ward, and like he's solidified himself as like the number. Like,
where's Shedeur Sanders going? Then do you think he falls
that's
back?
A mystery. Like I've seen people think he can go as high as like number 2 to Cleveland. Some people think he'll fall into like the 20s.
Wow.
Yeah,
so that'll be something that people are really watching in the draft. Is where Shedeur Sanders goes.
Yeah, no, like Cam Ward, he seems to be making like a really good impression on Titans brass. Like I don't know if you saw, like if you follow like Jim Wyatt and those guys for the Titans, but there was a clip like at the end of his pro day, like Cam Ward was like all smiles, like shaking Brian Callahan's hand. Like Brian Callahan was all smiles too, and like the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach were there. And there was another play. There was another point of his of his pro day where he was doing a drill where he was making a throw like off the run or whatever. And right after he makes the throw, he goes and says something to Mike Borgonzi, who's Titans GM, and Chad Brink, who's Titans president of football operations. He has something to say to him, and if you can see in the video, the guy seemed to be kind of laughing. He seemed to be getting a kick out of it. So it seems like Cam Ward has really made a good impression on the Titans brass coaching staff and executives.
All right. Well, I'm excited for it, man. I am. Yeah. The Preds and the Titans are kind of going through very, very oddly similar situations right now. Yeah. Obviously, NFL draft and NHL draft is way different. I mean, when it comes to how quickly player top picks can be ready to play and make impacts. But we're going to wrap up a really loaded and long episode 264 with an update on what's going on in the NHL right now. It's not a long, heavy load of NHL games tonight, but I just want to share this. The Stars are boat racing, curb stomping the Oilers right now, 4-0 on the back of Jason Robertson's hat trick that he has going on right now.
Now, I will say, I believe Edmonton does not have McDavid or Draisaitl.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But still, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Clayton Stewart, long lost buddy who lives in Dallas. I talked to him before the podcast tonight, and we were talking about the Stars and how we feel about that team. Love you, buddy. Your Stars look good, man. Won't be surprised at all if they lift the cup this year. The Ducks are beating the Bruins 4-1. The Bruins are probably dead in the water when it comes to making the playoffs.
Yes.
And then we were talking about our playoff race earlier in this episode. How about the Canucks? They beat the Islanders 5-2.
They need that.
So they're hanging around. And then for a lottery hopes, everybody, the Devils beat the Blackhawks. So if it can make anybody feel any better, the Predators aren't going to be any worse than the Blackhawks in the standings.
There you go.
So there you go. So there's your NHL scores for this there's only 4 games tonight. But yeah, so the Preds got the Blues again in their next matchup. We'll see if they can build some good mojo. But tonight's been a really good episode, Max. I've had a lot of fun. And our next episode we'll get it out to you in a week or two. Okay. And I think our next episode will be close to wrapping up not only this season, but really talking about the draft a lot more. So until that comes, everybody, we love you. Thank you for watching live tonight on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for listening on your favorite podcast platform. And we are presented by DraftKings, promo code THPN, and part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Enjoy the rest of your weeks, everybody. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
See you guys.